I mean, really interestingly about this is, I was just informed by Glenn Jones, Mike has yet to lose a game.
Yet to lose a game?
A game in this tournament.
Wow.
He calls the deck Zoo Risens. It's a little different than your typical Zoo deck. It's got some bigger guys, it's got a Terravore, and obviously the Green Sun Zeniths. So everybody welcome to round 6 of the Star City Games Open Series. I'm Gavin Verhey. I'm here with Adrian Sullivan. It's been a great tournament so far, and we're about to watch a match between two pretty interesting takes on their decks, and a match we haven't seen for a while. On your right is Mikey Letsch. Mikey is playing Zoo. So the thing about Zoo is he's taking a little interesting take on it. He's playing a deck he calls Zoo Risens, and he has yet to lose a game in this tournament. A game, not a match, a game.
Right.
And he just didn't have any buys coming into this. So he is 10-0 in this tournament so far, and he's got your typical Zoo base along with Green Sun Zenith, the card we've seen in some of the Zoo decks, and Terravore to go get, Grim Lavamancer, of a Zoo staple, 2 Sylvan Libraries, 1 more than the usual.
Right. I mean, for me, I'm going to say that even though he's undefeated in games, that might make him, you might say, the opposite of the underdog, the overdog, if you will. Because he's running my favorite card in Magic, Sylvan Library, I'm going to root for Michael on this one. Even though I want to be unbiased, but Sylvan, I love Sylvan Library.
So on the other hand, we've got John Winters, who is no slouch himself, fresh off of a top 8 from the standard portion, or even better, a finals appearance in the standard portion just this morning, losing to Edgar Flores playing Cobblade eventually. He's playing Goblins, trusty old Goblins, who's able to get it together for the legacy portion of this event. And it looks like a pretty stockish Goblin deck. He's playing a little bit of green for Tin Street Hooligan. So he has a single Tin Street Hooligan to go get in the main deck, and then Croson Grips in the sideboard. So it should be interesting to see how this plays out. We were talking before the match, and it sounds like Zoo is traditionally the favored deck here. They've got the removal to contain goblins. They have a lot of good options, but Mikey is playing Zoo. He knows what he's doing, has lost the game, but John Winters obviously has momentum working in his favor, and Goblins is certainly a powerful deck on its own, too. It can pretty easily gain card advantage and go past all the removal that the Zoo deck plays. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Looks like the players are keeping their opening hands, and we're off to the races. Turn 1, Forest, Noble Hierarch. And let's see, John Winters cracks Arid Mesa, and is probably going to find a dual land here.
I love the look of Michael Letch's deck here. I mean, it just looks like it has so many exciting lines of play. He can open up and have a turn 2 Knight of the Reliquary. His Knight of the Reliquary has that Horizon Canopy, New Horizons engine, and has a Terravore to go with it. The Green Sun Zenith can do just so much here. And then on top of those kinds of cards, he just piles onto it the aggressive Zoo engine right on top of it. Right. Elspeth even. He's got room for 2 Elspeths just to get even more potential reach damage from his creatures.
Right. It's very similar to the Green Sun Zenith versions of Zoo we saw earlier, a couple of weeks back, but he's made a couple small modifications that have maybe pushed it over the top. And there's the play, turn 1 Aether Vial for John Winters. And Aether Vial is just the card in Goblins. When you open on Vial or Lackey, one of those 2 cards, it can completely dominate the game. We'll see how it turns out for John this game, but if it's going to go longer and be more of a control affair, that Vial might not be as strong.
Let's see how he unloads this. I see a Wild Nacatl. He's got a second Noble Hierarch, and then the first one comes in to get hit for 2.
Yeah, nice. Noble Hierarch is so powerful. When a card replaces Birds of Paradise as your staple mana accelerator, you know a card is insane, and the fact that it can just hit for so many points of damage when you do Tarmogoyf Wars, does all kinds of things, is really powerful. So ups the Aether Vial to 1. plays down Wooded Foothills, and just passes. No turn 2 play from John Winters.
Right. That Aether Vial lets him sit back and put those cards out at will. Now, important to note with John Winters' deck, his deck is kind of a very traditional Goblins deck, with the only spell in his deck being Aether Vial. His fake spells, Gem Palm Incinerator ×4, Tin Street Hooligan ×1, and if you want, you can call Goblin Matron your demonic tutor fake spell, but...
Goblin Sharpshooter is kind of a fake spell, too,
right,
in some senses. Sharpshooter is a card we haven't necessarily seen a ton of in Goblins. Some Goblins builds have chose to eschew the Sharpshooter.
It was a classic, but
yeah,
you know,
it's a classic.
It's a classic when you're dealing with a lot of small creatures.
Yeah. Let's see. So Mikey's hand looks like it's Lightning Bolt, Kozali, Pride Mage, Tarmogoyf, a good triumvirate of cards to have. And that Taiga is going to pump that Wild Nacatl up to a 3/3, and then those Noble Hierarchs are going to make it a 5/5. So
that's so much damage.
The one creature serves in for 5 damage, and there's a Tarmogoyf.
Now look at that board presence. I mean, it's going to be hard for John to put anything out that's of any note.
Right.
And Mike then still has a Lightning Bolt for whatever the best thing is.
Gabe Lanciano chimes in on Twitter, and Ringleader is a fake factor fiction.
Yeah, it is. It is a fake factor fiction. And you know, there are sometimes, I'm not one of these people because I don't play goblins enough. I have definitely seen people cast that and just be like, well, they're all goblins right into my hand.
Exactly.
Nice split.
Totally. Yeah, Ringleader, a very powerful card, and the only one of that cycle to see play. Goblin Ringleader was actually part of a cycle, but few people actually realized that. We saw Sylvan Messenger get a little bit of play earlier in the season, and that was about it. The Soldier one never saw any play. The Merfolk one never saw any play.
The Merfolk one? What Merfolk one? The Wizard one.
Oh, it's a Wizard one? I thought it was a Merfolk one.
No, it was the Wizard tribe.
Oh, it was Wizards. Huh.
They were worried that Wizards would be too powerful when they printed Patron Wizard, and so they called back the power of the rest of the Wizards. What we see here is the one of the lords, in fact, probably the most important of the lords, making everything cheaper.
Goblin Warchief is the defining card of goblins. Back when the card first appeared, it's what really drove goblins onto the scene. I think that's a path to exile drawn by a Mikey here.
Christopher Rivers and Justin Watney come on up to the main event stage for your
Is that a Terravore in his hand now?
And
could be. He is playing one Terravore.
also, EDH number 6. Come on up to the main event stage. We're going to get you started. That's EDH number 6.
He's serving in for a bunch here. And now he's going to bring out, that must be, yep, there's Terravore. And that Terravore looks to be, John has to read it, looks to be a 2 or, let's see, 4/4, I think? I want to say it's a 3/3, somewhere between a 3/3 and a 5/5. I think it's either a 3/3 or a 4/4.
Oh, look at Mikey. Mikey has just got a big smile on his face.
He is running well. And there's the fake factor fiction.
1, 2, 1?
One goblin.
One goblin.
Not the Ringleader he was hoping for.
Doing a quick check. What is that I see there? Do you happen to have a Stomping Grounds?
Yeah.
Verifying it is indeed a Stomping Grounds.
It is a Stomping Grounds. So one Taiga, one Stomping Grounds. I guess he probably couldn't find a second Taiga.
And that's
and,
that.
Yeah, Mikey,
Path and scoop.
Mikey continues to be undefeated in this tournament. Not a single game down by Mikey Letsch. Wow. So how do you think we're going to board up here? Let's see. So,
you know, he's already got a really strong opening game here. Just to begin with, I don't think he actually cares about his opponent gaining life in this matchup. Swords to Plowshares might be a reasonable card to bring in.
I agree.
I think it's just probably going to be the swords. He might bring in a card like Dryad Arbor or some of the other lands he has in his sideboard. He does have 1, 2, 3, 4 lands in his sideboard. He might bring in some of that just to say this: I have a great matchup here. I'm going to simply make myself not get mana screwed.
Right, I can actually totally agree with that. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe one land come in, potentially, I'd guess Caracas, probably, or Wasteland. I think the white source is probably more important than the colorless source. Like, there's only a couple lands you can actually destroy. And so, taking out...
Maybe the Noble Hierarch. Maybe he doesn't have to be fast here. Maybe he just is going to win off of the strength of his cards.
I mean, Pride Mage seems pretty weak in this matchup. It kills Vile, but I'm not sure how about that.
Pride Mage is still a 2/2 though at the same time,
right.
And it also still pumps up the other creatures that you might attack with. So that when you attack with the Pride Mage by itself, that's 3, and I think that the Pride Mage might still have a home.
As far as John Winter's sideboard goes, he doesn't have a lot for this matchup. He has Pyrokinesis, which is a pretty typical Goblin sideboard card.
I was wrong about the Ringleader. It is a Merfolk Ringleader. My bad. My apologies.
Tidal Courier, Merfolk. I pulled up the Apocalypse spoiler, but it looks like Frankie Richard got to it before I could finish talking about sideboarding.
Thank you, Live with Frank.
The 3 Pyrokinesis, and Pyrokinesis was another cycle card, along with Force of Will, the better known part of its cycle.
Right.
Force of Will, Pyrokinesis, Bounty of the Hunt, let's see. Scars of the Veteran.
There you go.
And which color am I missing?
Black.
Oh, and Contagion.
There you go.
Yeah. And all of them have seen play except for, I think, Scars of the Veteran.
I think those cards were seeing play when you were probably about 6.
I was not very old.
Yeah.
But Pyrokinesis, for those who don't know, you pitch a red card and you deal 4 damage to creatures divided how you choose.
Yeah, that's a really amazing ability against some matchups. Here, though, this is another reason to potentially consider dropping out your Wild Nicotl, or not Wild Nicotls, pardon me, your Noble Hierarchs, because there's a lot of 1 toughness running around. Most of the rest of your creatures are big enough that it's going to be hard to get much value out of a Pyrokinesis. The Sting Scourger might be of value to get rid of one of these huge monsters that could come out, even as a delay tactic.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. Jared Param notes on Twitter that the black version of Goblins, there's 2 versions. There's the black version and the green version. John is playing the green, not the black, but without the black, he can't play Perish, which is the real breaker in this matchup.
Absolutely. Another one of the veterans of the past, Ken Kroner, he speaks up and says, the current Legacy may be the best Magic format of all time. You know what, Ken? I have been playing Magic for a long time. I have never been so excited about a tournament-constructed format as I am about Legacy. Legacy is just incredible.
Yeah, Legacy is such a robust format. So many different decks you can play. We've featured combo decks, control decks, beatdown decks, new innovative decks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy, like, turn 1 Metalworker decks. There's David Sharpman peering in the background, trying to get on camera.
One of the things that it reminds me of in a lot of ways is Invasion Block Constructed, where if you just had a good head on your shoulders, if you understood how the metagame worked, and if you put together a good collection of cards, you could make a deck that could function and be competitive in a format that already had some well-defined, strong archetypes. This is just like that, except for there's far, far, far more archetypes that are defined and are powerful. John Winters tossing it back.
That's not a good sign for Mr. Winters.
Mikey is trying to show his shirt off to the camera. I don't know if that was successful for any of you at home.
Man. And a pile of shuffling. Mikey keeping his hand, probably not what John Winters wanted to see here. Every card is going to be crucial because he's trying to play the control deck. And so, having all those extra removal spells, an extra creature or 2 is really going to be a problem for John Winters.
I have to say, I'm looking at this zoo list from Michael Letsch, and this might actually have me play a zoo deck in Legacy. You've got a number of 4-ofs: Nicotl, Noble Hierarch, Tarmogoyf, Kasali Pride Mage, Knight of the Reliquary, Bolt, Green Sun Zenith, Path to Exile. Then you've got your 2-ofs for your, quote, mid-game, late-game: Sylvan Library, Grim Lavamancer, Elspeth, and then your Singleton, your 1 Terravore that you can tutor up with your Green Sun Zenith, and then an awesome selection of mana that just, this deck looks great.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is probably one of the better built zoo decks I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, for me, any opportunity to play a Sylvan Library plus a lot of library manipulation, I really like that. That's just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Sylvan Library is, in a zoo deck where you don't care about your life total in a lot of matchups, you can just be like, all right, draw 3 cards every turn, or I guess, a couple turns at least. And it just puts you right back in the game when you would be running out of cards otherwise.
And there's all kinds of subtle ways you can use the Sylvan Library to manipulate the top of your library. A lot of people don't know that the ability on Sylvan Library is activated. When I see people just draw 3 with Sylvan Library in terms of like they're doing it all at once and then they put their 2 back, it just makes me want to play the Sylvan Library for them.
So the game started off, John Winters leading on a Goblin Lackey, and cracks an Arid Mesa.
It's very possible that with the newest reprinting of Sylvan, they've changed it around, but last I saw, it was a 0 activated.
Yeah, Sylvan Library is a triggered ability.
Is it? Check the Oracle. Is that the Oracle?
This is the Oracle wording on Sylvan Library. It is a triggered ability.
Now it's triggered. Okay.
For those who don't know what the card does, it's a really old card you may not recognize. It says at the beginning of your draw step, you may draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand, draw on this turn.
Okay.
For each of those cards, pay 4 life or put the card back.
Yeah. So they've changed it with an Oracle routing. If you look at the image of the card that they have there, the 0 has been changed into a trigger.
Right.
That makes me sad.
So let's see. John Winters goes for Bolt on the Lackey, making sure that the Deadly Goblin does not connect. The Lackey might be named a Lackey, but his friends are no slouches, and bringing in CGN Commander is something you do not want to deal with on turn 2.
Well put, Gavin.
Let's See what John Winter chooses to go for here. He's Wastelands down Mikey's land. Wasteland card we actually haven't seen a ton of action from this weekend, but that is really the defining card of this format.
Yeah, we've seen it in play. It just hasn't done anything,
Right.
I think, on screen until now.
I think people are starting to build their decks to combat Wasteland better because it's just such a defining card. Although Jerry Thompson, I talked to him, and he feels like with Wasteland, the answer is not to play more basic lands, but just to play more lands in general. But in this case, Mikey had the lands to follow it up with, which makes Wasteland not that threatening. That's why you want to play more lands in your deck, because
Yep.
if you it's just a 1-for-1. So as long as you keep playing lands, it's okay. There's
Now-
a Tarmogoyf for Mikey.
Look at this board now. Like, nothing on John's side versus Nakatl Tarmogoyf.
Yep. Good times. Let's see. Nakatl and Tarmogoyf. Really slow starts from John in both games. I think John is trying to play the control deck here, and he might be assigning his role incorrectly. Granted, that Lackey was something I'm sure he was riding some hopes on, but he couldn't expect it to connect.
I mean, I think he's in the classic position of being forced into a role that he's ill-suited to play. He can't really play the beatdown deck because Mikey has better beatdown, and he can't really play the control because Mikey has better control. What do you do?
Yeah, it is a rough world. And if you look at Mikey's hand, he's got good creatures, and he's got holding on to Path to Exile, another wild Nakatl. Just not a lot you can do here.
I almost think, actually, that one of the things that John Winter should do in a matchup that's as radically bad as this is take out his mana acceleration in the form of Aether Vial. And now, I realize that that's a really radical suggestion, but one of the reasons I would consider doing that is just because on a fair game, having cards that are just mana for him, I don't know that that does anything for him. I think he pretty much wants all of his goblins because it's just another creature to be killed, and then, ignore the vial. I know that that's really crazy, but
It's also possible you just want to hedge and sideboard out some lands. So often in bad matchups, if your matchup is really bad, you have to feel like you have to get
Right.
lucky to win. You can board out lands just to increase your chances of doing
There we
that.
go.
And yeah,
Shakes it up.
there's the hand. Mikey Letsch continues undefeated in games in this tournament.
Wow.
6-0, 12-0.
that is some excitingness.
What's it?
He got his